Contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Chizito. On Spectrum, tonight we're reviewing the week. Some of the topics we'll be looking at: the KAJUL conviction. Was it justice by mob justice? The DRC conflict. Kagame threatened with the being taken to the ICC as Uganda has chosen to mediate. The split within the NRM, some leaders there say they want to form another political party. Something like happened before to create the present day FDC. We'll talk about the university vice chancellor race at Makerere. 6 candidates, all the other candidates except one refused to move forward. What could happen there? We'll also talk about the Ghanaian tragedy. This week, Ghanaian President John Atta Mills died. Shortly before his deputy was sworn in to lead the nation, there was no mischief. The vice president was sworn in. He died at 68. The president will look at the lessons that other countries can learn from that tragedy. Our guest tonight, Mr. Kintu Nyago, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the President. You're most welcome, Mr. Kintu Nyago.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL and an analyst of political and social issues. You're most welcome, Mr. Opiyo.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Edmond.
We're also joined by Mr. Vincent Mayanja, Deputy Secretary General of the Democratic Party. You're most welcome, Mr. Mayanja.
Thank you, Edmond. Good evening, viewers and listeners.
Nicholas, some legal experts have said the KAJUL conviction was really mob justice. What exactly is it?
Well, the question is to be posed: do we condemn the gruesome murder in which the 12-year-old Joseph Kasirye was murdered in? Yes, we do. And I think I share the pains of the family, I share the pains of many other people in this country. Not just the death of Mr. Joseph Kasirye, but also many other children in the hands of traditionalists who believe that spirits can be cast using the spirits of children. It's completely deplorable. And I think that anybody, not just in this one case, who has committed these acts must be held to the full extent of the law. They must be held to account. Am I happy with the process in which KAJUL was tried? Yes and no. And these are my reasons. You've got to look at how this case unfolded. You have a case in which a witch doctor and his wife confessed to having murdered a child on the instructions of somebody. These two criminals, self-confessed criminals, are then turned into state witnesses and absolved of any responsibility of this crime. The person who is alleged to have paid them is then indicted and taken before a High Court judge of repute. At the very beginning, the first High Court judge didn't even find it fitting to put KAJUL to his defense, because the nature of the evidence adduced against him was not enough, in his view, to convict a person of the offense of murder, whose sentence is severe, whose sentence is death. Okay? So he dismissed the case on a no case to answer. Rightfully, an appeal was then lodged to the Court of Appeal, and a retrial was ordered. In that sense, I think that the judicial mechanism worked, and in some way you can then begin to have confidence in the judiciary. But the manner in which the judiciary was untwisted by both the police and the public, in my view, put the judiciary at no position but to convict KAJUL. I think KAJUL's trial, like the trial of an LRA commander who comes out of the bush now, the only verdict that he could have gotten was a guilty verdict.
What do you mean the judiciary was untwisted?
The amount of pressure, the amount of condemnation, the intrusive involvement of the Inspector General of Police, in particular as a person, in this case, the mounting of media campaign against the judge who had acquitted KAJUL was, in my view, amazing. And I think that That is the only black spot in this trial. I think we need to begin to respect judicial decisions. Instead of using the judiciary as a public relations tool by investigators who had failed in their duty, I think they need to begin to address the failures in their systems. Because I think that the investigations of this case was completely messed up. From the crime scene as a whole, you have a crime scene that's not preserved. You have a crime scene where the public is allowed to trample on. You have a case that is put together hurriedly and then collapses on its own weight. And you have this judge being vilified in the press. I have never seen a judge so much condemned as I did see the judge who acquitted Kajubi in the first instance. Yes, I mean a reputable judge. It's not your run-of-the-mill judge who was appointed yesterday. He's a reputable judge. So in that sense, I think that we in a way add. And I think that brings to my mind the sayings of Lord Denning, one of the greatest judges in legal history, at least in common law, that he would rather acquit a guilty person than condemn to death an innocent man.
Right.
I think such pressures, in my view, and this same pressure, by the way, was applied in the case of the former DPC of Mukono, who now finds himself condemned to Luzira, even if he hasn't been tried. This is a worrying trend, that there's one high-profile case that we take on and then just play media campaigns around it and then make it sound like it's a very tight case. I think that it's extremely telling in my view, and that affects, in my view, the independence of the judiciary significantly.
Do you think that's the reason why Justice Chipita did not sentence him to death? He had some doubts with him.
Well, first of all, there's an unwritten moratorium on the death sentence in Uganda. The president has not signed a death sentence for a very long time. I think over 10 years.
I think since 1993.
Yeah, over 10 years. So there's an unwritten moratorium on the death, especially given the ruling in the Susan Chigula case, in which the court said that if you cannot hang them in 3 years, the sentence can be commuted to life imprisonment.
Right.
So I think that the judge perhaps was keeping in line with the jurisprudence in the country in handing him a life sentence. And by the way, life sentence means life sentence.
It's not 20 years, not 18 years.
The Supreme Court offered an opinion on what they mean by life sentence in a recent decision, and they said what they actually mean is staying away for the rest of your life.
Not 20 years, not 18 years.
No.
The president's name was involved in both cases. The one in Mkono and Kajubi's case, he said, I think he ordered a retrial or something. He made strong statements about this.
But look, even if he did, I share the sentiments regarding the issues relating to how sad it was for a young child to be killed. I don't think it was a traditionalist. I think it was just somebody who was criminal. I mean, you find no tradition that I know of in this country accommodates that kind of practice. That said, witch doctors, you find some witch doctors who are, or traditional whatever, who are errant, just like in the church. Chiwetere was supposed to have been a Christian. Now that said, I don't see how, to begin with, judicial decisions or verdicts are not sacred. That's why they are debated in law school. And they should not only be debated in law school, but they should also be debated in the public realm. They are not, they are not sacred. They are not things that you cannot comment upon. But that said, debate, which is very healthy. Judges are not appointed by public opinion, no police, whatever. Nor the press. The press doesn't appoint judicial officers in the Constitution of Uganda. Nor does public opinion, nor the Inspector General of Police. So the actions of these people, or the debate in the press, or the debate in the public realm like here, should not in any way infringe, cannot in any way under the Constitution of Uganda affect the independence of the judiciary, because there are certain regulations, there are certain laws that entrench judicial independence. Judges can only be sacked because of given impropriety, lack of ethical misconduct, yes, or if they become senile, or something to do with that. The debate I'm conducting here can't affect. I can't sue a judge because of my debate. nor can any of these major media houses or any whatever opinion leader. So debate is healthy, and that does not, such debate, which should continue in my view, does not in any way undermine judicial independence. And in case judges feel threatened by this, then they don't deserve to be on the bench.
Yes.
They don't deserve to be on the bench.
Right.
Because a judge is supposed to be steadfast. And a judge is not supposed to be swayed by public opinion. And that's why they're supposed to be experienced and with a given kind of training. That's why we don't just the president does not just appoint any Tom, Dick, and Harry to become a judge. So I don't see how debate in any way could have
Tom,
affected.
Dick, and Chaudhry.
I don't see how debate or whatever could have affected. So, in my view, the independence of the judiciary has not been undermined by debate about this case, which I think should continue on any case.
Mr. Mayanja, was it mob justice?
Well, first
And then lastly, also you find, for example, I mean, the public should look. One of the problems we have in this country is human trafficking.
Yes.
And recently, a judge set free a human trafficker.
Suspected human trafficker.
Yes, but the point is, so should we just keep mum because it's someone on the bench?
Right.
Human trafficking, Ugandans are being killed. Ugandans are being raped, killed, men are being sodomized in the Far East and so forth, and a judge on the bench with whatever decided to set free a human trafficker, or a pedophile.
Yeah.
I have a case was of a pedophile, but now these are the more high-sounding cases. How about the ordinary cases? So should we just keep mum because somebody in red robes or whatever has issued? Yeah.
But I think Mr. Nyago is also suffering from this mob justice
Mentality.
So I think what we should be debating whether the police does the right work.
That's the point.
If you are going to investigate, then investigate a case and investigate it well, so that you can win a case before a judge. But what I want to say is that the current ruling by Justice Mike Chibita has suffered the same fate as the ruling by Justice Moses Machiri.
Yes.
Because you don't know how the first judgment has played in this one, in the current one. And if you say that there is no public opinion that can sway a court decision, then you are wrong.
It should not.
And that's why we have assessors in those courts. They give their view.
Well, but the judge is not bound to go by the assessors.
Yeah, but you know what? The assessors are normally, they are not bound, I agree. But the assessors are normally following what the public is saying.
Well, but assessors sometimes are sequestrated just before the ruling. Sometimes they're taken away.
Yeah,
so
but
they don't get
you know,
they don't read
all
those papers for some time.
All these, the judges and whatever.
Maybe in movies, not in Uganda.
A part of the
Maybe in movies.
a part of the public. But as a matter of fact, I think we just need to follow the process of the law. If Kajubi was not satisfied with the ruling, then he should be advised to go and appeal.
With this particular ruling?
Yes, with this particular ruling. I think that is going to create harmony. Then the other thing, government did well, that when they lost the other time, they appealed. And the court ordered, as my colleague has said, a retrial. I think Mr. Kajubi still has the time to appeal to the second level of court, and then even the Supreme Court. If they maintain that the police really produced the right evidence, then that would be it. But the more important thing, and I don't want somebody to say that these were traditionalists. I think there was a trend by that time where many children were disappearing, were being sacrificed. You find a kid killed somewhere, which has somehow gone down. But do you know when it went down?
The Kajubi time?
No.
When?
And I'm very sorry if I'm mentioning this, and I'm really, bringing back some memories to some people. That's when a child
You can skip the names.
of somebody prominent,
Right.
was victim of this trend. And then the police came up, everybody came up, and it subsided. I think what we need to do now is for the security agencies to follow up these people. They go and talk to the traditional healers and all those, and to really understand the psyche behind somebody saying that I'll get rich if I kill somebody, because that's what should be done.
Spiritism.
Yeah, you need to have people who can run how the spirits work, the spirit world
In
work.
police.
In police. You need that.
Just quickly, just in 1 minute, make 2 quick points in reaction to what Honorable Nyago said. The first,
Honorable, okay, go
yeah, I mean, he's a honorable person in society. That is the context in which I said, the term honorable. Is that debates are healthy, no doubt about it. The question then is, what is the manner of that debate? The vilification of the judge as a person arising out of his ruling by the very same people who should have actually investigated this case thoroughly and adduced evidence is what I think is unfortunate.
Right.
And then secondly, you can hear the voice that he speaks about this. I mean, we all have this strong attachment about, a pedophile, a killer. But first and foremost, these are suspects whose guilt must be determined before a court of law based on evidence. What we need to investigate is, are we carrying out investigations and adducing enough evidence before the courts to convict people?
We need to move forward. Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight we're reviewing the week, been looking at the KIJUL conviction. Our guests tonight, Mr. Kintu Nyago, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the President, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, a legal consultant at AKIJUL and an analyst on social and political issues, and Mr. Vincent Mayanja, Deputy Secretary General of the Democratic Party. You can send your text messages to 7197 to contribute to this discussion. That is Spectrum, message, question or comment. Send it to 7197. Let's go to Makere right now. This week, several contestants petitioned the search committee handling the selection of a new Vice Chancellor, saying they will not take part in the process if Venatius Bariamreva does not step down as acting Vice Chancellor. Barria is interested in the job, but his friends, call them friends, say he cannot be candidate as he still holds the office. The Solicitor General says that he had advised previously that he should step aside. Vincent Mayanja, should these other candidates insist that Barria steps down, the select committee says he doesn't have to.
Well, I don't think that the select committee is the one that is making the rules. I think these rules should have been really announced beforehand by the authorities of the university, and then everybody follow those rules. I think when you are going for a contest of this nature, you need all to be on the same level. The level must be really leveled. I tend to agree with some of these people that really, if you want a fair competition, then you need everybody to be at that level.
We don't do it for the president. Why should we do it in Makere?
Well, you have said this is the president of the country, and the country cannot live one day without a president.
Going to hold.
But this is the Vice Chancellor of Makere University, and he has deputies. Therefore, even if he stepped down, Makere University will be running. I really tend to agree that if they wanted that process to be transparent, to be fair, to be really free, Professor Bariamreva should have stepped down.
What do you think is going to happen in practice?
Well, of course, they have already created a problem. He has said, I will not step down.
And the committee says they will go ahead.
The committee say they will go ahead. And I can certainly say that the result of that process are going to be disputed.
Mr. Kintu Nyago.
Well, look, I find that's a possibility. Ben Chuanuka of the DP did stand unopposed at one time in 1961. The Kabaka and others boycotted. And he became prime minister.
UPC never boycotted.
Well, and he won. At least in Buganda, he was unopposed. Now,
okay. Well, that's a different fact.
What I'm saying is, look, this leveling thing sounds nice on paper, but really, it's much more complicated. Because look, many of these gentlemen, they are all men, have got responsibility in the university. either as deans or head of departments or head of schools.
One of them came from the US.
Well, apart from Mr. Oyana, who has no responsibility in Makerere, Professor Oyana. But the others head the principals of schools or heads of departments. So what's good for the goose, in principle, should be good for the gander. So if Beremureba is to resign, I think it makes sense for all of them to resign their responsibilities.
Well, but Beremureba is not contesting for the smaller jobs.
No. The point is using your job to influence the events of the university.
Well, but they're fighting to be vice chancellor.
Right. But I mean, you said from somewhere, if I had a school of the school of medicine, I could use that to get votes, I would imagine. So that said, I think that's the point. But then secondly,
but votes are not gotten like that.
Then secondly, the point is that look, in as much as the university has a deputy vice chancellor, and if Beremureba is not there, somebody could run it. I mean, in elective office, people don't usually leave office before. Incumbents don't leave office, be it an LC1, be it an LC3 level, be it members of parliament, be it secretary general of parties like Mr. Mayanja is going to stand. Does not first resign as deputy secretary general of the DP
and hand over the file.
So please, if that principle does not work for you in the DP, why do you want it to work in another institution like Makerere University?
Edmund, two things. The advice of the Attorney General, Solicitor General is but only an advice. It is not a legally binding advice. You are under no legal obligation to follow if you don't agree with it.
Yes.
So the citation of this advice as a legal position is in my view not correct. The Honorable Kintu Nyago told you in Parliament, and this was confirmed by the Supreme Court, that the advice is only but an advice. I can decide to disregard it. So I think that the advice, one, is not binding. What then is the problem? I think the problem is the rather vague provisions of the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act, which does not set clear criteria for elections of people who are supposed to be vice chancellors of university. So the law is silent, and therefore the current VC has a justified point and said, I'm not required by the law to resign to contest for this office. He has a point.
Let's look at the chain of command. How does it work?
His opponents do have a point as well. Is it fair? Of course, it doesn't sound fair.
Okay, before we go, let's look at the chain of command. How do they report?
Who reports to?
Barrier, I think, is a member of the Senate.
Yeah, he is.
How do they report? And let's look at the chain of command briefly.
Well, the university is run in a way that heads of schools, they are now called schools.
In terms of this particular poll, what is the chain of command? Who do they report to?
Well, the University Council.
The University Council
is the overall body to which the search committee will then make a recommendation for an appointment of a vice chancellor. That recommendation will then be forwarded to the relevant government departments for formal appointment, the Ministry of Education. So the entire process under the law is not clear. Even the regulations made under the law does not provide for clear processes of electing a vice chancellor. And that's the lacuna that is being exploited by the current VC. Right. Secondly, the entire setup is flawed because the committee that's supposed to search for the vice chancellorship was in itself constituted by the university, among others, by the vice chancellor who was contesting. So the whole process is mad in my view, with a bit of confusion that I think needs to be
so the line is cast from
I think so.
Very briefly, Mr. Chinina.
You know, it does not agreed. Mr. Opiyo makes a strong point there, but it does not follow that simply because an incumbent appoints the chairman of the Electoral Commission, or the incumbent, like in America, appoints judges on the Supreme Court, that they would favor the American president or presidency, or that the Electoral Commission would favor. So, I mean, these are supposed to be people of impeccable integrity. That's why they are there.
This is Spectrum Radio.
In theory, yes.
After this break.
You can pay, you can buy, pay your bills, pay school fees, send cash overseas, pay taxi fees, and salaries, anything you need, anything you need.
You can do anything
working with MTN Mobile Money. And now, for the first time in Uganda, you can even pay your electricity bills. Go to your MTN Mobile Money menu, select Pay Bills, select Umeme Touch Pay, and follow the prompts.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
John, Mike, and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special.
You've earned it. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we're reviewing the week. We've been looking at the KIJUL conviction, the fight for the Vice Chancellor's race at Makere. We're moving forward. Now our guests tonight, Mr. Kintu Nyago, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the President, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL, also an analyst on social and political issues, and Mr. Vincent Mayanja, Deputy Secretary General of the Democratic Party. You can contribute by sending us a text message to 7197. That is Spectrum. Message, question, or comment, send it to 7197. Nicholas Opiyo, this week it emerged that a group of NRM legislators are in the final stages of registering a political party. Some people think this is going to threaten the foundation of the NRM. Some people have called it the Orange Movement, and they think it's allied to the Orange ODM party in Kenya. Is this going to shake the political bedrock of the NRM?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that some sort of massive exodus, if at all, is going to happen from the NRM, will of course destabilize the current setup of the party. But will that make the party significantly weak so as to fall in the hands of these people? Past history tells us no. Basically, even the most the person who broke out because of ideologies and complaint about the direction of the party has not been able to dislodge the quarter pin, if you like. I think that what these people are doing in itself might be a useful development that may not weaken the party. What I think is happening, and this is where I disagree with them, is that the departure from NRM does not seem to be one that is based on ideology. It is not. It is simply, in my view, based on simple, small disagreements that in itself does not produce a different dispensation from the NRM. I think the only person who has left the NRM on a point of ideology is basically on directions. All these guys, the Mukulas, are simply, in my view, selfish and looking for their own ends and using popular sentiment and popular view about them having overstayed in power to propel their own interests. Because if the departure was one...
The NRM overstayed.
Yes, it has. That's true. It has. I mean, I was 5 years old when they came to power. I'm now 30. That's a long time. You can't say it's a short time. I think among African leaders, no matter what method he retains power with, whether it's elections or whatever it is, it's been a long time in power. So it's long. Secondly, I think that the only convergence that is going to significantly change the contour of our politics is not going to be an internal eruption in the NRM, but an emergence, in my view, of a completely different and people who are devoid of this mess, this whole corruption, this history, this murderous history of our country. I think the time for a new generation, that is the kind of people that I think will significantly change the contour of our politics. Not Mukula.
When do you expect that?
Not Mukula. Soon. I can't give you details, but soon. Soon.
Look, we as we'll appreciate Mr. Edmund and listeners, we have one of the best constitutions in the world, in my view.
The national constitution.
Oh yes, it's one of the best on the planet Earth. Very liberal document, very fair, very empowering, engendering, and so forth. And we have a leadership that has attempted to follow it to the letter. I mean, they're not perfect, but they have attempted to. That said, the power in Uganda has been, as the Constitution points out, is with the people, and it is the people that decide who is to govern them. Now, some of the things Mr. Opiyo is talking about corruption, murder, and so forth, these are things like, let's take corruption. It happens everywhere. I mean, look at the global...
Even in the Vatican, does it happen?
I won't go that far, but I mean, you have followed the press. But the the problems that, is it banking scandal, whatever?
The Barclays banking scandal in the UK.
In part, but even earlier on in America.
The credit crunch.
Lehman Brothers.
Merrill Lynch and something, and some hedge funds and so forth. Huge scandals. I mean, corruption is corrupt for but the important point is how these countries have possibly institutions and the political whatever to fight against it. Now, in Uganda, the corruption we have here is not at that scale.
Did you say political?
Only $500 billion.
You said not at that scale, and also the record of fighting corruption in this country by this administration under President Museveni is enviable. In terms of, look, let's put it this way. There was a time in this country, without going into so much lengthy whatever, there was a time in this country when a member of parliament from Mubende called Sebastian Sebugwao, using parliamentary immunity, critiqued David Oitojok for concurrently being the head of the army and also chair of the coffee marketing board. That same evening, around this time at Opiyo Avenue, he was shot dead
by robbers, maybe.
By Oitojok's henchmen, Sokolo and Agit. You see? Because the man critiqued, and what he said was true.
Those are different times.
Please, the point I'm trying to make, that now that we have a normal society, the creation of normalcy, whereby even parliamentary immunity is respected, whereby even military generals are taken to court because of corruption, that's fundamentally, that's a major achievement. Obote Wine, after the Auditor General's report in 1971, failed to get Idi Amin to the gallows. He failed, and he just flew off to Singapore. The rest is history. But Kazini was even much more credible general than Idi Amin. He was killed by he was taken there for a year, and ministers have been, and so forth. So the point I'm trying, these are not small scale, but you say chicken thieves or whatever, or village hoodlums. Generals, ministers, party chairmen of the NRM itself. Due process is fairly, so that kind of a record is not something that you just, especially within the context of our own history. Now, that said, when the party you're talking about, I see it's ominous, because imperialism is being cited. Imperialism is being cited about American multinationals, bankrolling. These people are according to the press, because all this is in the press. One paper has been pointing out that a big American firm that was engaged in, I think, tendering big, huge services for the American war effort in both Iran and Afghanistan, with one of the former American leaders being behind, was the CEO of that company. That's what the press tells us.
Big training.
I don't know, I don't want to mention names, but that's what the press tells us. But the point I'm trying to make, the imperialism at play. So what do these, so these are phony characters. They
have no right to speak to us about craft.
No, I'm not critiquing the Americans or that company. It's in its interest possibly to have weak leaders. But what I'm critiquing are the people, the puppets that are being used. So the people who want to create this, whatever organization is called, seem to be puppets of big imperialist forces who want to have weak leaders in this country who are eyeing our vast natural resources, the oil. So these are people should be aware of, non-credible. African political parties that have had
leaders in the NRM,
African parties that have had standing are embedded in the people, and they are not formed by imperialist multinationals. As
Edmond, this is Edmond. This is very, very unfortunate.
The problem with our leaders is one, they want to compare themselves with midgets.
Yes.
Why would you compare yourself to a Obote? Why would you compare yourself to Amin? Ugandans deserve better. I know that the NRM can do better. So you don't start saying that because this one did this, we have managed to do this, so we can continue doing what we do.
Yes.
And I want to tell Mr. Nyago that embezzling money meant for people who are suffering from HIV it's not imperialism. Embezzling money meant for CHOGM is not imperialism. It's about our weaknesses as Africans, and we need to address it that way. Simple and clear. About this, he really took us to a different topic altogether.
Yeah, let's talk about the split
in an area. I think some people are putting the country first than themselves in the area.
Well, let's look at
we have been what could happen at this very table.
Coming from the east, rising
at
like
this very table, I remember we were debating those debates when they came up in Parliament, and I want
oil debates,
and I want that maybe these people will metamorphose into a political party, and they are going that way. But my fear is one, that they are going to fail again to do whatever they want to do. For one reason. For one reason. As Mr. Opiyo has stated it, they are not driven
by ideology.
Yes. They are driven by what they think is wrong with the NRM. What should be the guiding principle, our moral compass, should be what we believe in, what ideology we profess. That is going to define what we do.
Mr. Nyago, you're not worried about this. You're not losing sleep.
Just briefly to respond, very briefly to the Deputy Secretary of the Democratic Party, Honorable Mayanja. Look, Obote and Idi Amin are not figments of my own creation.
They're not midgets?
No, they are not. I'm not hallucinating when I talk about Obote and Idi Amin. These are
they have
well, we can compare ourselves to Mahatma Gandhi, but I mean, I'd rather contextualize my own history, which I understand better. Because Idi Amin, I was alive when Idi Amin.
But you had yourself there.
Mr. Mayanja, I didn't speak when what kind of democracy are you practicing? And I was there.
This is about speaking.
Please. I was there for the better one and the better two. These are people these are leaders who have influenced our history. I mean, these are not creations of my own imagination. So the comparison is valid. Now, that said, I think the issue of imperialism relates to what the press has been telling us, that some huge American multinational interested in oil and other things.
You believe in red paper? Come on.
Why should I not? That's why you're I do have done great for this country, in terms of freedom of the press and so forth, and employment and so forth. Now, they have informed us, I'm sure they've done their research, that a huge American multinational under oil resources, wanting to have weak puppet leaders, is funding this party. So these are not credible leaders at all.
Resist them with all the strength that we have.
Democratically, for sure. Democratically. And I would imagine this kind of party that is made of puppets will have a still back.
Let's talk about Nicholas.
Very strong words.
American leaders is that whenever an opponent comes up, they say they are puppets of the foreigners. The red paper tells us, let's look at the problem within the NRM, not the forces. Well, we shall.
I haven't indulged in discussing the headlines of a tabloid. Tabloids are supposed to be sensational, fun, and
paper has been very credible.
It's a tabloid. I mean, it's a good paper, but it's a tabloid. Really, it's not a paper of record. View on matters as substantial as that. So I think that what we need to appreciate is the fact that no matter where their funding comes from, what we need to debate.
Look at the substance of
is the issue that they are raising. Is it valid? Do they raise credible issues about internal democracies within the NRM?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to the DRC. President Paul Kagame has been threatened with being indicted by the ICC because they claim the Rwandan government is fueling the DRC conflict. The US has warned him, they've cancelled military aid, I believe, with military cooperation. Another country, the Netherlands, has suspended aid to Rwanda because they claim they are backing the DRC rebels. The rebels in the DRC. Rwanda denies this. Where is this likely to go, Nicholas?
Well, I was in Rwanda at the end of last year, in which the US rep at the UN, Madame Susan Rice, during Passover, it's a big occasion in the US. she flew down to Kigali and addressed a very huge gathering at Butare University, in which she made it very clear that the US,
equivalent of our Makere.
oh yeah, in which she made it very clear that the US has serious concerns about the involvement of Rwanda in the rebellion in the DRC. At the time, the concern was more about what came out of the UN mapping report about the alleged genocide by the government of Rwanda against the Hutu dissidents in camps in the DRC. So this has been boiling. And I do recall vividly, I think about the 18th of December, at a parliamentary sitting, Kagame lashing at foreign imperialists in much the same terms as Kintu, and his boss have been doing.
No.
What do you teach me about democracy? What do you teach me about democracy? It was a very, in my view, undiplomatic attack.
It was undiplomatic.
Yes, because they were in his presence in Parliament, was being telecast live on the only TV station in Rwanda. So this has been coming for a long time. Now, what will happen? I think that Rwanda has lost the initiative. The UN mapping report was released and delayed a bit because Rwanda was still forming a biggest contingent of the UN force in the Haiti, and they threatened to withdraw.
Haiti?
Yes. They did threaten to withdraw at the time, and it was important, it was a crucial time, and so the report had to be delayed, and the wordings of the report had to be tampered with. The whole UNSG then had to fly into Rwanda to try and soften.
Yes,
so it was a big thing, but I think they've lost the initiative. I think that Kagame, just like the president in this country, who was at one time described as the new breed of African leaders, is I think eventually running his distance. The patience is running out, because 18 years after the genocide, there is no excuse for lack of political space in Rwanda. There's no excuse for gross human rights violation in Rwanda, but also across in the DRC. And I think that these pressures, in my view, are good. They might help solve the problem that Rwanda has had to deal with for a very long time. Don't remind us of genocide. It's long gone. We need to move forward.
You think it's long? 18 years?
18 years is a long time, and that country needs to move on.
No, look, we are being reminded every day, and I think justifiably so, of the Holocaust. And it took place not 18 years ago.
About 50 years ago. More than
longer than
60?
No, 70. About 70, 45 or so.
Yeah,
70 years ago. The Holocaust is being reminded to us, and I think justifiably so. 70 years after it took place, anti-Semitism and so forth. So look, the genocide is something that took place in Rwanda, and Interahamwe are in Congo. The Interahamwe are in Congo.
Armed?
Even a man called Kabuga is somewhere.
Felix, Phillips in Nairobi.
And anybody who tries to chase him up has been killed. So the point is, the starting point is that many of these powers that are actually now critiquing the situation there hardly did anything during the genocide. As if we were in the medieval ages, because in the medieval ages you couldn't have blamed anybody if, say, some kind of serious human catastrophe.
They took and explained some of it.
But now you've got aircraft carriers, you've got whatever, no-fly zones and so forth. Nobody did anything. Was it because it was in Africa? Because Rwanda has not
to apologize because for his inaction.
Well, I'm sure the apology was accepted, but was it because there's no oil in Rwanda?
We condemn neocolonialism, but cry for their help.
No.
Don't come with
it's a crime against humanity. You are a lawyer, and you're supposed to be a human rights.
That's true.
So, when I condemn the Holocaust, it's not because I'm a Jew, but because I believe human rights are universal. That's why I condemn Hitler and that fanatic criminal ideology of his.
That's true.
It's anything. That's why I can't stand into the Hamways. But that said, Uganda is going to host the Great Lakes Conference.
Yes.
Early next month, with the view of attempting to resolve some of these issues. I think that's the way forward, to have the regional body to come together with all the parties and discuss this thing out.
The UN held meetings for 100 days and to stop Rwanda genocide.
First and foremost, I think we have a problem at our hands in the region, and we need to really address it properly. Diagnose the problem and find the right prescription. The fact is, our countries, the neighboring countries to DRC, have been really indulging themselves into fueling the conflict in the DRC.
How have they done?
Uganda had troops, thousands of them, in DRC.
Yes.
It created militias in the DRC. One of such militias was recently convicted in the ICC, and he's going to serve, I don't know
Mr.
how many years.
Lubanga.
Yes,
14
Lubanga.
years,
And he was a stooge of Uganda. Therefore, we need to look at the problem. We need to address the root causes. If Uganda is complaining,
what's your prescription?
if Uganda is complaining that it has people who can destabilize it within the DRC, then we need to address that problem.
How do we do it?
We need to do it by bringing in neutral mediators.
Like
if you say that
a scenario, like
if Uganda is the one that is going to mediate in this,
give us in Addis Ababa earlier this month, they agreed to create a neutral force to police, peace in Rwanda. Uganda is supposed to be a party to that. Rwanda
is Uganda neutral?
Well, that's what they agreed.
I don't think that's what I'm saying. That some of the remnants of the militias in the DRC have their background or have their godfathers in Uganda. Uganda is the one that's is part of one of the countries that started the conflict in.
Mr. Nyago,
no, Mr. Nyago should wait. They have been working for 26 years and he still wants to talk. So I feel that when I was hearing your news bulletin on Radio 1, there is a politician they quoted who said that he was quoting the lawyers that when you are seeking equity, you have to go there with clean hands. Then the mediators, if the mediator is seeking equity in DRC, they have to have.
Let's have this gentleman.
Okay, now look, the starting point is that the conference that is going to take place in Uganda of the Great Lakes countries, it's not Uganda that is going to be the impartial arbiter. No, I think they're the chair, but I mean that does not mean that we are going to be the ones that it is like a summit of all the leaders. So they are all going to come and try to get a solution. So it's not only Uganda as the arbiter between the warring parties. No, it is all the Great Lakes countries, all the leaders of the Great Lakes countries that are going to be here, and there are quite a number. I think there are about 9 countries or so. They're going to be here, and they are all equals in that summit. Now that said, the situation in Congo is much more complex than how Mr. Mayanja seems to project it, because Mr. Lubanga was actually a reaction. He is from the Hema tribe. It was a reaction of the Lendu militia that were armed by some people, if were armed by the Kinshasa regime to kill the Hema. And this has been going. This has been going on. So Lubanga was a reaction of that. And what happened in the ICC is that they only got Lubanga. How about the Lendu who are killing the Hema? You are aware yourself. Is that fortunate? Please. Is that fair?
Can I give you information
on that? Because they should. I mean, if we are
because you're misrepresenting something.
No. But the Lendu are killing the Hema. Now, secondly, Uganda itself is threatened. Mr. Mayanja doesn't seem to realize this. Uganda is threatened because the ADF, who again a figment of my imagination, who killed our own at Chichwamba, among others. I guess 5 or so kilometers away from the border of Uganda.
Not in Kisangani.
Whatever they are, but the point is they're near the border of Uganda, and nothing is being done about that.
Right.
Does the UN conventions allow for that?
Let's
happening towards movements with the objectives to
because I want to inform him that by that time I was an international journalist and I was active. I used to meet in Uganda representatives of this man who was convicted recently. That is Hema. I used to meet people.
Yes.
No. In Naguru.
Yes.
People from the Lendu side. So if I tell you that we are within this, we are embedded in this conflict and we need to retrieve ourselves out, I'm telling you.
That's why there will be a summit.
Wind up the evening and the week. This week, Ghanaian President Jonathan Mills died, and then immediately thereafter, his Vice President was sworn in. They had John 1, John 2, John 3, 3 Johns. Jonathan Mills, John Kufu, and now another John. Mr. Nyago, is that something that can happen here?
The death or the swear again?
Can we have a smooth transfer of power in case something like that
I
happens?
was asking about the death.
Why not? Because look, in terms, just as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the enviable record of President Museveni in the fight against corruption,
Yes.
and I gave empirical evidence.
Yes, you did.
Sebastian Sebogo of the Democratic Party.
That was not corruption. It was
Go
on.
State-inspired corruption, state-inspired violence, that's corruption, impunity. Now, you find that Mr. Museveni and the NRM have an enviable record of institution building. Our parliament, some people may not appreciate this, is enviable in the Commonwealth of Nations. Our local governments and any other institutions. The UPDF is being praised for this one in Somalia. I mean, the US Marines and others, you know what happened there. So, institutions are the ones that create that kind of smooth transition. They are not just a result of, say, wishful thinking. So, we have what it takes to manage any kind of
Mr. Nicholas Opiyo.
tragedy.
Well, to answer your question directly, whether this can happen in this country would require
Yes or no? Tick the box.
some experiments. Perhaps you might need somebody to die.
Vincent Mayanja.
I definitely doubt that can happen. With the institution, a small transfer.
Somebody before we go, Mr. Gideon Kapir from Ngora District says, Spectrum, let them go ahead and form the Orange Movement. We are tired of corruption, sectarianism, and nepotism in the NRM. That's someone from Ngora District, where the Orange Movement is supposed to be rising like the sun from the east. We have to go. Thank you very much, leader, dear guests. Mr. Kintu Nyago, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the President, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, Legal Consultant at AKIJUL, also an analyst of political and social issues, Mr. Vincent Mayanja, Deputy Secretary General.
Can you say okay, Nicholas? That's enough.
Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond, so Spectrum will be back on Monday. Up next is the news in English.
Have a good weekend, thanks.